every conversation had intentions. Sometimes it's to learn, to connect, or simply to be heard. In this video, we explore the deeper exchange between me and a former US Navy ship commander in 2004. I met Commando Bell when I was doing research for my first documentary, Rolling Out 52. He provided the perspective of a US Navy commander who rescued Vietnamese boat people. In every conversation, there are times when people tell you what they want to tell you. If you want to dig deeper, you must pose the question with an intentions. I'll walk you through what drives the questions, what truths emerge in the answers. Let's dive into the art of intentional conversations. In the beginning, the commander routinely wrote out the constructed narrative in his head.
The events of June of 1982, where my own ship picked up 70 Vietnamese refugees, was a very important event in that it lent meaning to my life. There's an Emily Dickinson poem called Not in Vain, in which she describes picking up a robin and putting it back in its nest and how that gave meaning to her life. And there were 70 robins that our ship put back in the nest. I think every sailor who participated in that had a heartwarming experience, a feeling of sympathy for the Vietnamese whom we picked up, and their hearts went out to these people, and those sailors did everything in their power to make the refugees feel at home on the boat. And after the refugees were put ashore in the Philippines, many of the sailors were concerned about what happened to them and their lives. My ship picked up the refugees in June of 1982. Between 1982 and 2001, I'd essentially forgotten about the experience, hadn't thought about it much, become very involved in my life and business, and in spring of 2001, I had received an email from a Vietnamese girl who had managed to track me down through the internet. She had found a postcard with a picture of the ship that had rescued her. She was able to find me and send me an email. In that email, she told me how grateful she and her family were for being rescued from what would have been certain death in a storm at sea. Later, she invited me to her wedding, where I was overwhelmed by the gratitude of her family and others of the Vietnamese whom we had rescued so long ago. And so an experience that I had essentially forgotten about now became a very important event in my life, something that lent meaning to my life. And it made me very proud to see how well these Vietnamese had prospered and become happy citizens of the United States.
At this point, I want to take him back to Vietnam and maybe open up about his experiences. Perhaps trauma. The thing that makes you want to talk about this and get involved in this project, does it have anything to do with the kind of destruction that you seen while you were in Vietnam? You've seen a lot of destruction in war, and Is this somehow
Well,
correlate?
I have a lot of sympathy and understanding for the Vietnamese people because I spent so much time over there during the Vietnam War. In fact, for a solid year, I was an advisor to the Vietnamese Navy. And, I basically lived among the Vietnamese sailors for that whole year, eating their food, making futile attempts to speak their language. I was involved in combat, and many of my Vietnamese friends were killed or wounded. So I probably had more sympathy than most for the Vietnamese people from that experience. And it's very heartwarming to me to participate in a documentary that describes the saga of these people and coming from the oppression of a communist government to the freedom of the American country, and taking advantage of the opportunities here to succeed and make lives for themselves. These people have become citizens and they're happy, and many of them are just overjoyed at this chance for a new life that being picked up at sea gave them.
I'm beginning to drive the questions into his memories. He began to talk about his own trauma. You mentioned to me that you still in therapy at times about your experience in
Well,
Vietnam.
I still have some what I would call wounds that have never healed from the Vietnam War. Experiences that left me with a deep and pervasive sadness. I participate in group meetings with former veterans just to talk about these experiences and try and put these demons behind me.
What is this like? I mean, do you have nightmares? What is it like to go through it as a husband?
I don't say that I have nightmares. I have what I call bad dreams about some of the experiences I had in Vietnam. And a lot of it had nothing to do with the Vietnamese people. It was things like I was in a plane crash in Vietnam. I was with a unit that was overrun by a numerically superior North Vietnamese force. A friend of mine was killed in an accident with a hand grenade. I saw children killed by a bomb set off by Viet Cong. I saw a boat sunk by a Viet Cong bomb. My own boat was hit with 4 rocket-propelled grenades and caught on fire, and several sailors were killed. And a lot of these experiences, come back and haunt you. And I'm sure that that's true of everyone who's participated in every war since wars began. It's not something that prevents me from functioning, but it's something in quiet moments that haunt you.
So are you trying to bring a closure to
Exactly.
this woman? And what do you think that will help you
I want to be happy about my memories of Vietnam instead of sad. And seeing Vietnamese refugees who've prospered in this country makes me happy.
Do you have this desire to go and revisit the area that you were before when you were in the war?
I I do if it would help me. I don't know right now whether that would help me or hurt me, you know. But it might help me exorcise the demons that haunt me. And if I were able to go back there and see what happened and see, instead of death, life, that might help. One of the things I think I need to do is talk to some veteran who has gone over there and visited the area where he fought and find out from him how it made him feel and whether that helped him put those bad memories behind him. I did see a documentary in which veterans did just that. During that documentary, one of the veterans said, wow, it is really amazing to be back here. And another veteran says, you know, I have come back here every day of my life. He's talking about in his memories. He remembers it. It's something he thinks about every day of his life. And that's, I think, the biggest part of my problem with Vietnam. I think about it every day, every night before I go to sleep. I have to take sleeping pills to go to sleep simply because I lie awake thinking about it, you know. And I'd like to not do that. I'd like to not be able to have to think about Vietnam ever again, you know.
I asked him about his defense mechanism when facing threats in the battlefield.
You obviously learned something through the war. So now if you can give an advice to an enlisted man, that what would you tell them? What would you, from your own experience?
Well, they're going to be trained, you know, for their jobs, whatever their jobs may be in combat. And you know, you can see from the developments in Iraq that the American serviceman is the best trained serviceman in the world, and they believe in their cause, and they fight hard and do a good job and obey orders. These are values that have been with the American serviceman since the beginning of this country. I think they will continue as long as this country exists, and as long as they have those values, this country will exist. There's not much that I can tell them except do your job.
I want to understand the humanity in him rather than a constructed narrative of the American savior tale.
Psychologically, how do you prepare them?
Well, your mind develops has a lot of defense mechanisms that protect you. When I was first in a serious firefight, I felt like I was in a movie. Because when I was a little boy, my father, when I went to a scary movie and hid behind the seat in front of me in the movie theater, my father said, "Don't be afraid, it's just a movie." So when mortar rounds started exploding around me and the enemy began charging my position, I felt like I'm in a movie. I have nothing to be afraid of. This is a movie. I was able to function and do my job just by this sort of out-of-body experience that you have. I don't know how others feel, but that it sort of protects you from fear. And the fear comes afterwards. The next day, when you see all the bodies lying around and you realize that could have been you, that's when the fear comes. That was my experience. I can remember seeing a Vietnamese sailor who'd been killed, and they put a rain parka over him and they had tied the cord around his neck so that you could see his face lined against the rain parka. And I was thinking, well, they shouldn't tie him like that. He can't breathe. But then I realized, hey, this guy doesn't need to breathe, you know. And I'm thinking that could have been me, and that's when a shudder goes through you. You know, everybody's going to have his own individual way of dealing with this, but it's a horrible thing, and I hope people never have to deal with it again. But you know, the saying, only the dead will ever see the end of war.
So do you go through this every battle? When you in the firefight, do you kind of block out the fear and then the fear came back later, or it's different?
That was the first firefight that I was in, and I think you have to have some sort of experience like that, you know, to get you through that first one. The subsequent firefights, it was not such an intense ordeal.
So you learn from the experience.
Right. It's almost like you get used to it, almost too used to it.
Oh, really? So after the first time when you saw somebody, someone's dead, you know, in the battle, does it kind of change your feeling about death afterwards? So do you after you know?
I tell you, what it did for me is put life in better perspective. You know, all of my life up to that point, I've been involved in, you know, in the Navy, you have many reports to file, and so you're constantly pushing paper. And paper assumes an unusual importance in your life. And I think one combat experience is enough to awaken you to the fact that paper is not really that important. You know, life is important, and there are other things besides pushing paper. And I thought at that moment, wow, I'm never going to worry about paperwork again. Of course, the rude world came back, and I ended up pushing papers again. But still, I was able to keep the paperwork in better perspective.
So you have new appreciations for life after you see someone.
I've learned that there's a difference between making a living and making a life.
What's the difference?
The difference is people are important, paper's not.
My takeaway from this conversation is only the dead can see the end of war. I hope he sees the end of war. Rest in peace, Commander Bell.